The call came out of nowhere. I was sitting in my car, parked outside my office, finishing the last few bites of a cold sandwich when my phone buzzed. The number was unknown. Usually, I would ignore it, but something in my gut told me to pick up. Logan. A man's voice, low and firm. Yeah. Who's this? We need to talk. It's about Emily. At that moment, my chest tightened. My wife, Emily. I didn't recognize the voice, but I could hear something in it, a mix of anger and urgency. Who the hell is this? I asked, gripping the steering wheel. Name's Brandon. We've never met, but I know your wife, a little too well. I went silent. The air in my car suddenly felt thick. I could hear my own heartbeat in my ears. You should meet me. Now, he continued. There's a cafe on 5th and Maple. 30 minutes. Then the line went dead. For a few seconds, I just sat there, staring at my phone. My mind raced. Maybe it was a prank. Maybe it was nothing. But deep down, I knew better. There was something off about Emily lately, more time on her phone, the distant glances, the sudden nights out with her friends. And now, this call? I turned the keys in the ignition, my hands steady but my heart pounding. I needed answers. The cafe was almost empty when I walked in. My eyes scanned the room, and then I saw him, Brandon. He was tall, built like someone who spent a lot of time in the gym. Dark hair, sharp jawline, and an expression that told me he wasn't here to waste time. As I approached, he didn't bother with pleasantries. I'll get straight to it, he said, sliding his phone across the table. I picked it up, and my stomach turned into a knot. Messages, photos, videos, all of Emily. And not just normal, casual pictures. These were intimate, secretive, things no husband should ever have to see. I swallowed hard, my throat dry. How long? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. A few months, Brandon said. She told me you were just some boring, clueless husband, that you didn't pay attention. I clenched my fists under the table. Emily, the woman I built my life with, had been lying straight to my face. And not just cheating, but disrespecting me behind my back. Why are you telling me this? I asked, trying to keep my emotions in check. Because she lied to me too, he said, shaking his head. Told me she was single, that you were out of the picture. I believed her, until I found out about your anniversary last week. My anniversary. I had taken her to a fancy restaurant, poured my heart into that night, and all the while, she had been sneaking around with this guy. I exhaled sharply, pushing the phone back toward him. Where is she now? Brandon smirked. At a hotel. Room 214. With another guy. I froze. Not me, he clarified. Some new guy. I figured you should know. Everything inside me burned. I wasn't just some fool being played. I was a joke to her. Brandon leaned in. So, what are you going to do about it? I stood up, my jaw tight, my hands steady. I'm going to find out just how deep this betrayal goes. And with that, I walked out of the cafe, already planning my next move. The drive to the hotel felt like a blur. My mind was racing, but my hands were steady on the wheel. Every red light felt like an eternity. My chest tightened with every breath. My wife, Emily, was in a hotel room with another man, and I was about to walk in on them. I didn't know what I was going to do when I got there, but I knew one thing. I wasn't leaving without answers. The hotel wasn't anything fancy, just one of those mid-range places with dim parking lot lights and a lobby that smelled like cheap coffee and worn-out carpets. I parked in the shadows, out of sight. Room 214. I walked inside, my ears ringing with every step. The elevator ride was silent, but my heart was pounding like a war drum. When I reached the door, I hesitated for just a second. My hand clenched into a fist, ready to knock, but I stopped myself. Instead, I pressed my ear to the door. Voices. A man's and a woman's. Her laugh. I knew that laugh. The same fake, flirtatious giggle she used when she wanted something from me. Rage boiled in my veins. I tried the handle. Locked? Of course. Taking a step back, I scanned the hallway. No cameras. No witnesses. My options were clear. I could walk away and deal with this later, or I could get the truth right now. I took a deep breath, lifted my foot, and kicked the door right by the handle. Crack. The door swung open, slamming against the wall. Inside, the scene was worse than I imagined. Emily, wearing nothing but a silk robe, her hair a mess. And the guy? Some young, cocky-looking idiot, sitting shirtless on the bed, frozen in shock. For a moment, nobody moved. Emily's eyes widened, her mouth opening like a fish gasping for air. Logan, she shrieked, clutching the robe around her. The guy scrambled to his feet, hands up. Yo, man, I didn't know she was married. I ignored him. My focus was on her. You lied to me, I said, my voice dangerously calm. Emily recovered quickly. Her shocked expression melted into something else, annoyance. Not guilt. Not fear. Annoyance. Oh, for God's sake. Logan, do you have any idea how crazy you look right now? She snapped, rolling her eyes. My fingers curled into fists. I look crazy? You're in a hotel room with some guy while I'm at home thinking you're working late. She sighed, shaking her head like I was the one being unreasonable. You're always so dramatic. Maybe if you paid more attention to me, I wouldn't have to go somewhere else for excitement. Something inside me snapped. You think this is about excitement? I laughed, shaking my head. This is about betrayal, Emily. About you lying to me. Disrespecting me. Throwing away everything we built for this. I gestured to the guy, who looked like he wanted to disappear. Emily crossed her arms, shifting her weight to one side. Oh, please. You act like you're some perfect husband. You're boring, Logan. Predictable. I needed something different. I stared at her, my anger mixing with something else, disgust. Not just for what she did, but for who she was. The guy cleared his throat. Look, man, I don't want any trouble. I turned to him. Then leave. He hesitated, looking at Emily. Babe. That single word sent another wave of fury through me. Emily gave him a dismissive flick of her hand. Go. I'll handle this. And just like that, he grabbed his shirt and bolted past me, disappearing down the hallway like a scared rabbit. Now, it was just me and her. Wow, I muttered. You really are something else, Emily. She smirked, sitting down on the bed like she didn't have a care in the world. Oh, come on. It's not that big of a deal. People cheat all the time. You'll get over it. I took a step closer. Get over it? I repeated, my voice low. Emily, I gave you everything. My loyalty. My love. And you threw it away like it was nothing. She yawned, stretching lazily. Honestly, Logan, I thought you'd figure it out sooner. You're not as sharp as you think. That was it. I turned and walked toward the door. Where are you going? She asked, a hint of amusement in her tone. I looked back at her one last time. You'll see. Then I left. As I walked down the hallway, my mind was clear. The pain was still there, but beneath it was something stronger, determination. This wasn't over. Not by a long shot. I drove home in silence. No music. No distractions. Just my thoughts, twisting and turning like a storm in my head. Emily's words echoed in my mind. People cheat all the time. You'll get over it. Like it was nothing. Like I was nothing. By the time I pulled into my driveway, my hands had stopped shaking. Not because I was calm, because my anger had turned into something sharper. Something clearer. I wasn't going to be played for a fool. Not anymore. I stepped inside, closing the door behind me. The house was dark and quiet, exactly like I had left it. The same house where I had once imagined a future with a woman who never really loved me. I walked into the kitchen, poured myself a drink, and sat at the table. For the first time in a long time, I wasn't confused. I wasn't heartbroken. I was focused. Emily would be home soon. And when she walked through that door, she'd find a very different version of the man she thought she could manipulate. It was past midnight when I heard the front door unlock. Emily strolled in like she didn't have a care in the world, tossing her purse onto the couch. She saw me sitting at the table and smirked. Oh, look at you, she said, kicking off her heels. Sitting here all broody like some dramatic movie character. What, are you still upset? I took a sip of my drink, setting the glass down calmly. Sit down, Emily. She raised an eyebrow. Oh, are we doing the serious talk now? Sit, I repeated, my tone leaving no room for argument. She sighed, rolling her eyes, but sat down across from me. All right, let's hear it. What grand speech do you have planned? I leaned forward, my hands clasped. I want the truth. She laughed. Actually laughed. The truth? Logan, you already know the truth. What do you need me to say? That I've been seeing other guys? Fine. I have. That I don't love you anymore? Fine. I don't. Happy. I clenched my jaw. How long? She shrugged. Depends. With Brandon? A few months. With others? A couple of years, maybe. My stomach twisted, but I didn't react. She leaned back, crossing her arms. I don't get why you're so shocked. You've been oblivious for years, Logan. You think being a good husband is enough? It's boring. You're boring. I exhaled slowly, controlling the rage boiling under my skin. Then why stay married to me? She grinned, and for the first time, I saw it clearly. She wasn't just selfish. She was cruel. Because it's easy, She admitted. You pay the bills. You take care of everything. And I get to have my fun on the side. Win-win. A part of me had still hoped that there was some shred of guilt in her. That maybe, deep down, she regretted what she had done. But she didn't. She never had. I nodded slowly. All right. She tilted her head. All right? That's it. I stood up, grabbing a folder from the counter. You think I'm boring, Emily? Let me make things interesting for you. I dropped the folder in front of her. She frowned, opening it. Her eyes flicked over the papers inside. Then they widened. Divorce papers? She muttered, her smirk finally fading. Signed and ready, I said. I had my lawyer draft them the second I left that hotel. For the first time, she was the one caught off guard. Wait, hold on. You're serious. As a heart attack, I said. I already froze our joint accounts. Canceled your credit cards. The car? It's in my name. Your phone? On my plan. By tomorrow, you'll have nothing but that little suitcase you keep under the bed. Her face twisted in shock. You can't just do that. I smirked. I already did. She slammed the folder shut. You're being ridiculous, Logan. You can't just throw everything away over a few mistakes. I scoffed. Mistakes? Emily, a mistake is forgetting an anniversary. You made choices. Repeatedly. And now, you get to live with them. She glared at me, her confidence cracking. You won't actually go through with this. You still love me. I met her gaze, and for the first time since this nightmare started, I felt nothing for her. Not anymore, I said simply. She stood up, pacing. This is insane. We can talk about this. We can work something out. I shook my head. There's nothing to work out. You already made your choice. Now, I'm making mine. She turned back to me, her eyes narrowing. You think you're punishing me, Logan? Fine. But don't come crawling back when you realize how empty your life is without me. I chuckled, grabbing my glass. I'd rather be alone than spend one more second with someone like you. She huffed, grabbing the papers and shoving them into her bag. Fine. But don't think for a second that I'm going to make this easy for you. I leaned against the counter. Emily, nothing about this was ever easy. But at least now, it's over. She stormed toward the door, yanking it open. You'll regret this, she hissed. I took a sip of my drink and smiled. No, you will. And with that, she walked out. As soon as the door slammed shut, I let out a long breath. For the first time in years, I felt free. But something told me this wasn't the last I'd hear from Emily. Not by a long shot. The moment Emily walked out, a strange silence settled over the house. For the first time in years, there was no tension, no hidden lies slithering through the air. Just quiet. I sat back down, staring at the divorce papers she had taken with her. It felt surreal. This was it. The end of something that should have died long ago. I should have felt relief. Instead, I felt like I was standing in the eye of a storm, waiting for the next hit. Because I knew Emily. She wasn't the type to walk away quietly. It didn't take long for her to make her move. The very next morning, I woke up to dozens of missed calls from unknown numbers. And then I saw it. A single text from my boss. Logan, we need to talk. Call me ASAP. My gut twisted. I dialed his number immediately. Logan, he answered, his voice tense. I'm going to ask you something, and I need you to be honest with me. Did you hit your wife? I nearly dropped the phone. What? No. Where is this coming from? He sighed. I got an anonymous email this morning. It claims you've been physically abusive to Emily for years. That she was terrified to come forward before, but now that she's escaped, she's finally speaking out. A cold wave washed over me. Emily. Boss, you know me, I said, gripping the phone. I would never lay a hand on her. I do, he admitted. But the higher-ups are worried about the company's reputation. We need to handle this carefully. I closed my eyes, taking a deep breath. What do I need to do? HR is launching an investigation, he said. For now, they want you to take a leave of absence until it's sorted out. Suspended. For something I didn't do. Emily was playing dirty. Understood, I said through clenched teeth. Logan. My boss hesitated. Get a lawyer. Fast. As soon as I hung up, I dialed my lawyer, Ethan. The moment he answered, I got straight to the point. Emily just accused me of abuse. Silence. Then a heavy sigh. Of course, she did. She sent something to my company, I said, pacing the room. They put me on leave. Ethan cursed under his breath. She's trying to ruin you before the divorce goes through. She wants leverage. Can she win this? I asked. Not if we move fast, he said. We need to prove she's lying. Do you have any texts, emails, anything that shows her true nature. I thought back to the night before. Her arrogance. Her casual admission that she never loved me. Then I remembered the hotel security cameras. I had kicked in that door. That entire confrontation had to be on tape. I grabbed my keys. I'm on it. I drove straight to the hotel, my hands gripping the wheel so hard my knuckles turned white. The manager, an older guy with tired eyes, raised an eyebrow when I walked in. Back again? He asked. I didn't have time for pleasantries. I need the security footage from last night. Room 214. His expression darkened. You the guy who broke in? I exhaled sharply. Yeah, but I didn't hurt anyone. I just need proof that I didn't lay a hand on my wife. He studied me for a moment, then nodded. Come with me. In the back office, he pulled up the footage. The screen flickered to life, showing a grainy black and white view of the hallway outside room 214. I watched myself kick down the door. Watched Emily sit on the bed, calm as ever. No fear. No bruises. Just boredom. Then, the final nail in her coffin, her smug confession. Oh, come on. It's not that big of a deal. People cheat all the time. You'll get over it. Honestly, Logan, I thought you'd figure it out sooner. You're not as sharp as you think. The manager whistled. Yikes. She doesn't sound like a scared woman to me. I pulled out my phone. Can I get a copy of that footage? He nodded. You got a USB? I did. And within minutes, I had the proof I needed. I sent the footage to Ethan immediately. 15 minutes later, he called back. Logan, this is gold. Not only does it prove she wasn't scared of you, but it also shows her true character. I'm filing an official response today. We're turning this around. For the first time since this nightmare started, I felt a small sense of victory. But I knew Emily wouldn't stop. This was just the beginning, and I was ready for whatever came next. I thought the security footage would be the end of it. That once the truth was out, Emily would back off. I was dead wrong. If anything, it only made her more desperate. The next morning, my phone started buzzing nonstop. Texts, missed calls, notifications. I frowned, picking it up. And then I saw it. Emily had gone public. She posted a long, tearful message on Facebook and Instagram, claiming she had escaped an abusive marriage. She painted herself as the victim, saying she had endured years of control, manipulation, and emotional torment. And, of course, she never mentioned her affairs. The comments were flooded with sympathy. Stay strong, Emily. No woman deserves this. You're so brave for speaking out. Men like him deserve to rot. And then I saw the worst one. We should make sure he never works again. My stomach twisted. Emily wasn't just trying to hurt me. She was trying to destroy me. I scrolled further. That's when I saw the direct messages. Threats. Insults. Strangers telling me I was worthless. That I should disappear. I clenched my fists. I wasn't going to let her do this to me. I called my lawyer. Ethan, we have a problem, I said, pacing my living room. Emily just took this public. She's telling the whole world I abused her. Ethan sighed. I was afraid she'd pull something like this. How do we shut it down? We don't, he said. Not yet. I froze. What? We let her dig her own grave, he explained. She just made public accusations with no evidence. That's defamation. And now, we have proof that she's lying. I exhaled sharply. So what do we do? He hesitated. You need to stay completely silent online. No posts, no angry responses, nothing. If you feed into it, it makes you look guilty. Let me handle this. It took everything in me to listen. Every part of me wanted to fire back, to expose her lies. But I trusted Ethan. So I did nothing. That night, I heard a knock on my door. A hard, impatient knock. I frowned, checking the time. 11:45 p.m. Who the hell? I opened the door. And there stood Brandon, Emily's boyfriend. His nose was still swollen from where I'd broken it, and his left arm was in a sling. But he still had the nerve to smirk. Logan, he said, his voice mocking. We need to talk. I gritted my teeth. You've got 5 seconds to get off my porch. He laughed. Relax, man. I just came to deliver a message. I crossed my arms. Then say it and leave. Brandon leaned against the doorframe. Emily's not done with you. You embarrassed her. You made her look bad. And she doesn't forgive easily. I stared at him. She did that to herself? He smirked. Maybe. But now she's pissed. And trust me, when Emily's pissed, she makes people pay. I clenched my fists. Get the hell off my property. He raised his hands in mock surrender. All right. Just thought you should know what's coming. And then, before leaving, he chuckled and muttered, check your car in the morning. A cold wave ran through me. I watched him stroll away, every nerve in my body screaming that something was very, very wrong. I barely slept. By the time the sun came up, I was already outside, stepping onto my driveway. And then I saw it. My car. The windshield was smashed in. The tires? Slashed. The entire hood was covered in deep, ugly key scratches, and spray painted across the side in big, red letters. Abuser. I stood there, staring. I should have been shocked, furious. But all I felt was tired. Because this was exactly the kind of thing Emily would do. She didn't want a divorce. She wanted to ruin me. I pulled out my phone and called the police. When the cops arrived, I gave them everything. The security footage. The texts. The threats. One of the officers, a tall guy with sharp eyes, nodded as he took notes. This isn't just vandalism, he said. It's harassment. And I guarantee it was her, I said. He nodded. We'll look into it. In the meantime, get some cameras up. If she tries anything else, we'll need more evidence. I clenched my jaw. What about the false accusations? She's trying to destroy my career. The officer exhaled. That's trickier. Legally, we can't arrest her for lying unless we prove intent. But your lawyer might be able to file a defamation suit. I nodded. Already working on it. As the cops left, I leaned against my ruined car, exhaustion washing over me. Emily was throwing everything at me. But she was making mistakes. And soon, she'd pay for them. Logan stood in front of his wrecked car, fists clenched at his sides. The red spray paint spelling abuser across the doors was a clear message. Emily wasn't finished. She wanted him broken, jobless, alone. And she wasn't afraid to get her hands dirty. He took a slow breath, forcing himself to stay calm. Reacting in anger would only make things worse. This wasn't just about revenge anymore. This was about survival. She wanted him to lose everything, but she had made a mistake. She was reckless, and reckless people always slipped up. That night, Logan installed security cameras around his house. If Emily or her little lapdog Brandon tried anything else, he'd have the proof he needed. But he wasn't going to sit back and wait for them to make the next move. He was going to set a trap. The next morning, Logan met with Ethan, his lawyer, in a small office downtown. The walls were lined with legal books, and the faint scent of coffee lingered in the air. Ethan sat behind his desk, flipping through a thick folder filled with all the evidence Logan had gathered so far. This is good, Ethan said, nodding. The hotel footage proves she wasn't afraid of you. The texts and emails show her manipulations. And now the vandalism? It's adding up. Logan leaned forward. But is it enough? Ethan tapped a pen against his desk. It's enough to counter her abuse claims, especially since she has no real evidence. But if you want to turn the tables on her, we need more. We need to prove malicious intent. Logan's mind raced. Malicious intent. Emily wasn't just lying. She was actively trying to destroy him. And that meant she had to be planning something even bigger. I have a feeling she's not done yet, Logan said. She wants to see me suffer, and I bet she's planning her next move. Ethan smirked. Then let's be ready for it. Logan spent the next few days acting exactly how Emily wanted him to, defeated. He stopped responding to messages, stayed offline, and let the rumors spread. The public sympathy for Emily only grew. Friends who once stood by him suddenly distanced themselves. Even old acquaintances sent him cold messages, telling him how disappointed they were in him. He gritted his teeth and took it. Emily thrived on control. The moment she thought she had one, she would slip up. And she did. 2 nights later, Logan's phone buzzed with an unknown number. He almost ignored it, but something told him to pick up. A familiar voice greeted him, Emily's best friend, Vanessa. She sounded nervous, almost hesitant. Logan, we need to talk. He leaned against the kitchen counter, his pulse steady. About what? About Emily, she said quickly. She's planning something, and I think it's going too far. Logan's jaw tightened. This was it. The slip-up. Meet me at the coffee shop on 5th, Vanessa whispered. We can't talk on the phone. Logan agreed. But as he hung up, he couldn't shake the feeling that this was exactly what Emily wanted. The coffee shop was nearly empty when Logan arrived. A few late-night stragglers sat with their laptops, the hum of conversation filling the air. Vanessa was already there, sitting in the corner, her fingers tapping anxiously against the table. He sat across from her. Talk. Vanessa glanced around, lowering her voice. Emily's losing it. She thought ruining your job would be enough, but now she's talking about something worse. She said she has one last move to finish you off. Logan narrowed his eyes. What move? Vanessa hesitated. She's setting you up. She wants to get the police involved again. But this time, it won't just be false accusations. She's planning something big, something that will make sure you never recover. A chill ran down Logan's spine. He had expected Emily to push further, but if she was desperate, that meant she was willing to go to extremes. "Why are you telling me this?" he asked. Vanessa looked down at the table. "Because I thought this was just going to be about the divorce. I didn't think she'd go this far. And honestly," she swallowed hard, "I think she's dangerous." Logan studied her carefully. There was fear in her eyes. Genuine fear. "Do you have proof?" he asked. Vanessa shook her head. "Not yet. But she's been meeting with people. Shady people. She keeps talking about how she needs one final push to make sure you can't fight back." Logan exhaled slowly. He needed to get ahead of this. He needed to trap her in her own game. When Logan left the coffee shop, he called Ethan immediately. "She's planning something big," Logan said. "I need to catch her in the act." Ethan thought for a moment. "Then we set the stage. Let her think you're vulnerable. Let her make her move." Logan smirked. "And when she does?" Ethan's voice was firm. "We bring her down." The next 48 hours were crucial. Logan made sure to act exactly how Emily expected, paranoid, withdrawn, afraid. He stayed out of sight, making sure she thought he was falling apart. And then, just as he had predicted, the final piece fell into place. Late at night, his phone buzzed again. A single text. "Come to the old storage unit on Maple Street. We need to talk." No name. No details. But Logan knew exactly who it was. Emily was making her move. And this time, he was ready. Logan stood outside the old storage unit on Maple Street, his breath visible in the cold night air. The dim streetlights barely illuminated the crumbling building, casting long shadows across the cracked pavement. His instincts screamed that this was a setup, but he had come prepared. He had left his phone recording in his pocket. A second phone, hidden in his glove compartment, was already streaming live to Ethan. If anything went down, there would be evidence. Taking a slow breath, he pushed open the rusted metal door. The inside was even darker than the street, the only light coming from a single hanging bulb flickering weakly above. Wooden crates and discarded furniture were stacked haphazardly, and the air smelled of dust and damp concrete. Then he saw her. Emily stood in the middle of the room, arms crossed, a smirk playing on her lips. She was dressed in all black, her expensive coat draped over her shoulders like she had walked in from some high-end gala. Beside her stood Brandon. His broken nose had healed slightly, but the bruise still lingered. His arm, still in a sling, twitched as he flexed his fingers. He wasn't just here for show. He was here for violence. "You actually came," Emily said, tilting her head. "That's surprising." Logan kept his expression neutral. "You wanted to talk." "I'm listening." Emily chuckled, shaking her head. "Oh, Logan. Always so serious. So predictable." She took a slow step forward, her heels clicking against the concrete. "I wanted to see just how far I could push you before you finally snapped." Logan remained still. He wouldn't give her the reaction she wanted. "But you didn't," she continued, sighing dramatically. "You kept playing the sad, betrayed husband. The victim. And I'll admit, you almost had me worried. But then I realized something." She paused, letting the silence stretch. "You're still clinging to hope." Logan's fingers curled into fists. "Hope for what?" Emily's smirk widened. "That there's a way out of this. That somehow, you'll come out on top. That people will see you for the poor, innocent man you think you are." She laughed, the sound sharp and cold. "But that's not how this ends, Logan. You don't get to win." Brandon stepped forward now, cracking his knuckles. "She's right. You should have just stayed down, man." Logan felt his pulse steady. They were trying to intimidate him. They wanted him to lash out, to lose control. But they underestimated him. "I don't need to win," he said evenly. "I just need the truth to come out." Emily's expression flickered, just for a second, before she regained her composure. "Truth," she scoffed. "The only truth that matters is the one people believe. And right now," she leaned in, her voice dropping to a whisper, "they believe me." Logan smirked. "Not for long." Emily's confidence wavered. "What the hell does that mean?" Logan reached into his pocket, pulling out his phone. He turned the screen toward her, watching as her face drained of color. The recording app was still running. "You really should be more careful about what you say," Logan said. Emily lunged for the phone, but Logan pulled it back easily. Brandon made a move toward him, but Logan took a step back, raising a hand. "I wouldn't," he warned. "The second you touch me, this goes from a setup to assault." Brandon hesitated, his jaw clenched. Emily's mask cracked, her composed exterior replaced with pure, seething rage. You think this changes anything? She spat. Even if you have a recording, no one will care. They believe me now, and nothing you do will change that. Logan studied her. She was unraveling. The careful, manipulative woman he had married was falling apart, revealing the desperation underneath. You're right, he said, his voice calm. They believe you now. But when this goes public, when people hear how you set this up, how you admitted to ruining my life on purpose. He tilted his head. Let's see how long they still stand by you. Emily's breathing quickened. She wasn't used to losing control. You wouldn't, she whispered. Logan shrugged. Watch me. For the first time since this nightmare began, he saw fear in her eyes. Real fear. She hadn't planned for this. Brandon shifted uncomfortably, sensing the power dynamic had changed. Emily, he muttered. Maybe we should. Shut up, she snapped. Logan smiled. He's smarter than you, Emily. You should listen to him. Her lips pressed into a thin line, but Logan could see her mind racing. She wasn't used to losing, and now she was calculating her next move. But Logan was done playing. He turned, heading for the door. I'd say it was nice catching up, but honestly, he glanced over his shoulder. I hope I never see you again. Emily didn't reply. Brandon didn't move. Logan stepped outside, inhaling the crisp night air. His heart pounded in his chest, adrenaline still coursing through his veins, but he felt something he hadn't in a long time. Victory. He had the upper hand now, and he wasn't about to waste it. Logan drove through the empty streets, his grip tight on the steering wheel. His heart was still hammering from the confrontation with Emily, but this time, it wasn't fear or anger fueling him. It was control. For the first time since this nightmare had started, he was the one holding the cards. Emily had played her hand, convinced she had already won. But now? Now she knew she wasn't untouchable. His phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen. Ethan. He put the call on speaker. You get everything? Logan asked, keeping his eyes on the road. Crystal clear, Ethan replied. I've already backed up the recording in 3 different places. Emily just confessed to her entire plan. Logan exhaled, the weight of months of betrayal and lies starting to lift. So what's next? There was a pause on the other end. We go public. Logan smirked. Good. By morning, everyone would know the truth. The next day, Logan sat in Ethan's office as they went over the plan. They would release the recording strategically, making sure the right people saw it first. Emily had built her empire on lies. If those lies crumbled, so would her influence. Once this goes out, Ethan said, Emily will panic. She'll try to discredit you, spin the story. But this time, you have the upper hand. Logan nodded. He had spent weeks drowning in her manipulation, but now, he was the one setting the rules. Ethan opened his laptop, pulling up a list of contacts. We start with the press. The same ones that ate up Emily's victim's story will jump at the chance to expose a liar. Then, we go to social media. We don't just prove she lied. We show how she tried to destroy you. Logan's stomach twisted, not out of fear, but anticipation. Emily had wanted a war. Now she was about to get one. Within hours, the recording was everywhere. It started small, just a few online articles. Then, it spread. Twitter, Reddit, Instagram. The video of Emily's smug confession, her laughter as she admitted to framing Logan, her twisted satisfaction in ruining his life, it all exploded. And the world turned on her. Comments flooded in. I used to support her, but this is disgusting. How many other men has she done this to? She belongs in prison. Emily's perfect image shattered overnight. Her sponsors pulled out. Brands distanced themselves. Her once loyal followers started demanding answers. And then, the police got involved. False accusations. Defamation. Conspiracy to commit fraud. The legal storm was only beginning. Logan watched it all unfold from his apartment, his phone buzzing nonstop with updates. He didn't feel guilty. Not even a little. Emily had set this fire. Now she was the one burning in it. 3 days later, Logan received a text. Unknown number. Meet me. One last time. He stared at the message, knowing exactly who it was from. Emily. His gut told him to ignore it. She was desperate, grasping at any chance to regain control. But some part of him, maybe the part that once loved her, wanted to see her face one last time. So he went. The bar was empty when Logan walked in. The dim lights cast long shadows, and the air smelled of cheap whiskey and regret. Emily sat in the back, her once perfect posture slumped, her designer coat replaced with a hoodie. She looked different. Not just tired, defeated. When she saw him, her lips curled into a weak smile. Took you long enough. Logan pulled out the chair across from her but didn't sit. What do you want? Emily sighed, swirling the drink in her glass. You got what you wanted. Congratulations. Logan folded his arms. No, Emily. I didn't want any of this. I just wanted the truth to come out. She scoffed. The truth? The truth is, I was smarter than you. You were supposed to lose. She leaned forward, her voice dropping to a whisper. But you didn't, did you? Logan didn't answer. He didn't need to. Emily exhaled, shaking her head. You know, I really did love you. In the beginning. He studied her, trying to see if there was any part of her that was real. But it didn't matter anymore. He reached into his pocket and placed a folded piece of paper on the table. Sign it. Emily glanced down, and for the first time, her confidence completely shattered. Divorce papers. Her fingers tightened around her glass. That's it, she asked, her voice hollow. That's how this ends? Logan met her eyes. This ended the moment you betrayed me. For a second, he thought she might lash out. Scream. Fight. But instead, she picked up the pen, her hands trembling as she signed her name. She set it down, looking up at him with empty eyes. Goodbye, Logan. He picked up the papers and stood. Goodbye, Emily. Then, without another word, he walked away. And this time, he never looked back.